The ideal lease has a cheap base rent, cheap additional rent, long-term, exclusivity. It's got the ability to assign to another dentist or dentistry professional corporation without the landlord's consent required. Those are tough to get. It's got rights of first refusal in it. It's got no demolition clause, and it's got some good signage and parking terms. So if you can get those terms, you're set. Next question. It's an easy one. True or false, a demolition clause always results in lower offers for your practice. We have a situation right now where we have clients putting an offer on a place with a demolition clause, but it's brand new.
Sorry.
So the risk is minimal. We have another case where our client picked up a practice for 54% of appraised value because of the presence of a demolition clause and because everything around it was a condo. And the landlord said, no, you can't do anything with that clause. We're going to need it.
In a couple of years.
It's going to go down.
So yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the things is you look at who the anchor tenants are, because likely they're giving the no demolition clause to an anchor tenant. You put I'm not going to say Sears anymore, but you put in a Bay, or you can even put in a Walmart or even a McDonald's, a fast food type of place. And they likely don't have it. So you maybe can match up no demolition clause for your lease to match up with the one they've given an anchor tenant.
Also check the vacancy rates nearby. If it's really empty, be concerned.
We need to match it up.
So you've got a sorry, I didn't mean to speak while you're interrupting. Continue. No, you're done? All right. So if you've got a strip plaza, hypothetically, I'm going to put 4 things in there. I'm going to put McDonald's, a lot of bargaining power. I'm going to put a dental office, not as much bargaining power, although dentists are traditionally great, Class A type of tenants that don't default, and a couple of stores, just general, let's say a couple of clothing stores. Odds are the clothing stores are going to have a demolition clause in their lease, and they're going to push for the dentist to have one as well. But the bargaining power of something like a McDonald's or a Walmart or one of these bigger companies, they'll probably say, there's no demolition clause. If we're going to put something in here which is going to drive people to your mall, or we want it pushed out, say, not active for 15 years. So there's a demolition clause, but the landlord can't act on it for 10, 15 years. What you might have the opportunity to say is, I don't want a demolition clause. Landlord says, sorry, you're going to get one. You can say, well, there's a McDonald's there. I bet you McDonald's. If they have one, it's not active until 2030 or 2032, 20 years down the road. Can I match up with theirs? That they might be willing to do for you. That's better than nothing. So that's what I mean by matching up.
Okay, so we're done with the lease. We know what kind of market we're in. We know that having a good lease with good terms will increase the value of your practice. Yeah, go ahead, David.
Sorry, we haven't talked yet about turning your mind to selling your practice, but if you think you're going to be selling soon, it's never a bad time to look at your lease and think about maybe making efforts to renew it or amend it ahead of time, so that way when you go to sell a few years down the road, you've got a better looking lease for the purchaser. Again, it can help drive practice values up with a good one. It could potentially push values down with a bad one.
Now, when you're doing that,
yes,
are you opening yourself up to downside?
You're just having a conversation. They can't force the terms to be changed on you. The landlord may ask for something in exchange. You want no demolition clause? I want you to give me a guaranteed 10 or 15 more years at a higher base rent, just as a hypothetical.
Our experience dealing with landlords has been brutal, because landlords are brutal and they're just looking to make money on the sale. They see you selling for millions, they want their cut. We've seen landlords put things in leases like, if you sell, you want me to consent, I need 1.5% of the purchase price. If you are going to sell, I own the leaseholds, I want $100,000 for the leaseholds.
Yeah.
If you want my consent.
Landlords are getting more creative.
Yeah, if you want my consent, you have to pay for my transfer fees and all my legal fees, which isn't typically that high, but
horrible.
They try to dig in and get any kind of money.
And not only that, they also like to collect signatures. And what I mean by that is personal guarantees. So one of the things Michael didn't mention, but I would add now to what a good-looking lease looks like, if you assign it, you don't have to remain on as a guarantor for the next purchaser, because often one of the conditions is if you assign it, you remain liable. So you gotta look at your lease. So if you're gonna think about selling, it might be a good time now to try to negotiate a renewal of the lease early, sort of ask to break the lease early and enter into a new one, which has some bit more favorable terms.
Can you believe we had a client come to us? We never negotiated her lease, but the landlord wouldn't consent unless she was a guarantor until 2025. Wow. and that was the only way that she could sell her practice. It was
She did?
She did. She had no choice.